Start the clock.
Good afternoon. At the tone, time will be
Real time.
In Texas today, Governor Rick Perry signed
In
some of the
Alabama,
nation's
a
toughest
committee
Mississippi could soon begin the fight to eliminate abortion.
Women are going to have abortions. It's just that they are not going to be safe and legal.
The legislature passed a bill that they knew that we could not comply with. And that was the function of the bill. The function is a trap.
In the past 3 years, there have been hundreds of restrictions passed, more than in the past decade.
These rules don't add anything to the safety of women.
This is our pharmacy. The drugs always expire because we never use them. I don't know that we've ever used any of these things in this clinic ever.
They chop away piecemeal at reproductive rights.
There's a 2 or 3 week waiting list for a procedure where time is of the essence.
I remember getting a call once from a patient. She said, "What if I tell you what I have in my kitchen cabinet and you tell me what I could do?"
We've forgotten what this country is about. Dignity is given of God.
I have a hard time forgiving myself.
I want women to talk to each other, to quit shaming each other. I want people to quit shaming women over abortion, period.
I'm on the floor today to give voice to thousands of Texans who have been ignored.
The Supreme Court is going to hear another one of these cases, and it's going to be a showdown.
They're letting politics trump medicine.
You should understand it's not going to happen without a fight.
It is escalating what is happening across the United States.
It's increasingly becoming the case that women's constitutional rights are determined by their zip codes.
I just want more people to start asking who's benefiting. Who benefits?
Thank you and welcome to Real Time. Tonight's discussion is about a polarizing topic, abortion. Whether you're pro-life or pro-choice or somewhere in the middle, the topic is sensitive. And our goal is to have an honest conversation about an important issue. We apologize in advance if anyone is offended by our topic tonight. The focus of our discussion tonight will be about whether provisions of Texas House Bill number 2, otherwise known as HB2, is constitutional. This is one of the main issues in the recently argued Supreme Court case, Women's v. Health v. Hellstead. So at this point, let me introduce tonight's guests. Tonight, we have Ms. Alicia Thompson. She is the General Counsel for the American Association for General Practitioners. And we have Mr. Alan Abadi. He is the main legislative aide to the House in Georgia. You mentioned the undue burden.
Right.
Now, I'm guessing you're talking about Planned Parenthood v. Casey case.
Absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now the court has established what the standard has to be, right? Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, in Gonzalez, you know, Mr. Abadi is correct. In Gonzalez, they said that the interests of the state just need to be legitimate, right?
Right. Okay.
Now, seeing that the interest is possibly legitimate, I don't know, it could be questionable. However, it's given the fact that it is legitimate, right? Under Casey, it says that the effects and the purpose and outcomes that come from the provisions of the act, they just can't establish a substantial obstacle, which is the undue burden on women's access to healthcare. So it's hard to kind of see, and it's probably better for us to go provision by provision of the act.
Absolutely.
For sure. To really discuss it. So,
right, absolutely.
But I just want to put that out there because let's start with the provision of that men and privileges within 30 miles of the facility conducting abortions, right? Mm. Now, I get the argument. I get the argument that, if something was to go wrong with the procedure, the patient would have to be transferred to a facility to handle the emergency, which would cause, would for whatever the complications may be. Right. Now, I have some kind of reservations about that. Right. So, is 30 miles really necessary? Is 30? Does it have to be 30 miles?
Michael, I'll even go as far as to say, is it even necessary to single out abortion clinics as centers that have to have a position as like admitting, for the physicians to have admitting privileges when things like cosmetic centers aren't singled out? When you know,
here's the thing.
others, you're singling out abortion clinics and asking them to have the physicians have admitting privileges in the hospitals, when really, if you think about an everyday need, if we go to a clinic and we, you know, have an issue, we don't go to our emergency room and expect to see our physician there.
Right, but you know, there's something that you did leave out in that. You know, you left out the fact that, you know, when it comes to an abortion, like what are the statistics in terms of the complications that are going to be associated with getting an abortion, right?
Now, the complications part of it. I mean, the medical evidence have shown that the likelihood of something going wrong is so small. It's almost. I mean, to have a colonoscopy is more risky than having an abortion. And we're not even talking about a medical abortion. I'm not talking about surgical. I'm talking about medical. So I'm still trying to figure out, why are admitting privileges needed to administer a pill?
Okay. With regard to these admitting privileges, right? You know, if it's just because this issue was presented before the legislature about abortion. If this was if somebody had brought this up as far as dealing with cosmetic surgery, for instance, which, you know, statistically does have a high rate of, you know, this high rate of you know, complications higher than abortion, then sure, we would also apply those standards to them as well. You know, the thing of it is, we as a legislature have a lot of things that we have to go through, right? So when we're having to advise, you know, when we're having to, you know, come up with legislation that is going to be best for the society, we're doing our best to make sure, and the legislators are doing their best to make sure that they are addressing the issues as they're being presented to them by the society that they live in.
Okay, what your response?
I find it hard to believe in places such as Texas, of all places, where everything's big in Texas, right? That the legislature would start to put challenges and standards against cosmetic centers. I mean, you have these admitting privileges are. It's not just the obstacle of the centers actually having the admitting privileges. You got to think about, are the hospitals that are even within 30 miles allowing them to be there? And if it's a religious organization, if it's a Catholic hospital, these obstacles that have been put in the way of these doctors who are getting these admitted privileges. If there's even times when the doctors at the abortion clinics, if you don't have enough activity at certain hospitals, they withdraw your admitting privileges. So it's just, there's other obstacles that come into play, and I would like to see, again, the legislators start to put regulations on all these other types of small clinics, including cosmetic surgical centers, and see what the reaction will be. But it seems like they go after abortion, and as Mike referenced, I would like to start questioning what the purpose of this this really attack on the abortion industry is.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
May I?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that you know, we think about, and one of the major rationales behind why certain laws like these are passed, is because who are the people that are mainly going to be going out to these abortion clinics, right? They're usually people who struggle financially. Rich people, they're going to go and get an abortion. If their state legislature is going to really cause them problems, they're going to fly somewhere else and get it. But the people that are really being harmed by these by botched abortions, by unsafe abortions, are those who do not have a whole lot of finance.
Okay, I get you. I got you. Now, your argument poses to me another question that Justice Ginsburg had the same particular question during the oral arguments, right? Now, she asked the state whether or not it was okay for a patient to go to New Mexico for a procedure, which doesn't have any of these regulations on their services. But it's not okay. It's not okay for them to have it in Texas. I just don't understand, why is it okay if women's health is what's being protected here, and to avoid botched surgical procedures and things to that effect. Why is it that it's okay for a Texas citizen to go over to New Mexico and be involved in that risk? Don't you think that in itself kind of shows that this might not really be about the women's health here?
Well, at the same time, it could still be about women's health, because maybe New Mexico doesn't have, even though it's legal in New Mexico, does that necessarily mean that all their standards are of the best quality that they could be? No, not necessarily. And that is why this Texas state legislature believes that they passed this legislation. Okay. Admittedly, there are many people that are concerned, with how abortions are taken care of in Texas. It's a very big issue that has been, gone back all the way back to Roe versus Wade.
Okay.
So,
okay. Now, let's move on to the next provision. Okay. Yeah. The facility requirements.
Yeah.
Now, these facility requirements, they're not cheap to do. I mean, from the ground up, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And to retrofit a clinic, it's going to cost even more to do, to meet these ambulatory surgical center standards. Right. Now, I just have some kind of, I guess, questions about whether or not it's really necessary for a medical abortion, which is just a pill, or taking a pill 2 different days.
Right.
Why would you need to take a pill in a multi-million-dollar facility that involves don't need for a surgical team, no need for respirators or anything like that in order to administer the pill? So I'm just finding it very hard to believe. Like, what is about?
Mike, well, the quick answer to that question is there is no need. But what's going on here, you have these regulations that are being enforced on these doctors and these clinics. Doctors are putting their life savings into these clinics, as you suggested. There is no state funding that's going on to pay for these clinics. And it's even to the point that I saw in some research that I did, that medication even bought for these surgical centers is going bad. That's how little it's being used. They're putting their life savings in these clinics. They're doing whatever they can to get these clinics up to those standards, and the surgical instruments and the medication even is going to waste. And it's even to the point that for those who can't afford to do it, and for those who don't have the means, the clinics are closing. So that's the quick answer to that question.
Okay. So your response to that, I mean, it's a valid point.
It is.
It's a valid point. These facilities are expensive, and those who cannot make these changes, they have to close.
Right.
And with it being a risky business, some practitioners may not even want to get into the services. So with that reduction, don't you think it would basically set up almost an obstacle for the remaining women in Texas to get these services? Would they have longer waits? Would they have to travel longer distances? I mean seriously, like if there's only 5 clinics in the entire state,
right,
over 1 million women, I'm just trying to figure out how in the world if 5 facilities is going to handle that. And that's one of the arguments, that there was a question about whether or not these remaining facilities would have capacity in order to handle these individuals.
Right. And well, like I said before, when I had interviewed Sam Teasley, when I asked Sam Teasley, one of the state legislatures, about this particular provision, right? You have to understand that not all legislators, legislators, I should say, have the same exact opinions when it comes to how these facility requirements would really, affect the women's access to, getting an abortion. Now, if these type of surgical centers are really that costly and are really causing that much of an issue, then it should be and you know, there's a high enough incident rate that it would warrant, you know, getting that. Of course, you know, abortions, cosmetic surgery, and other, you know, other pieces of legislation should be, you know, other medical surgeries, you know, that has any risk of, it has high risks of incident, they should be upgraded to, you know, surgical centers, and they should be held to that standard.